We're going to continue our series called Hashtag, and today the hashtag is hashtag follow me. Consistently, the hashtag follow me is top 10, and its cousin, just follow, it's its shorter cousin, just follow, hashtag follow, are consistently number 10 and number 12 on Instagram's hashtag list. And so, what you usually see with hashtag follow me is somebody wanting you to follow them so that you see their posts more. They're trying to get more likes. It'll be hashtag like for likes or hashtag like me or hashtag follow me. And so now, I looked a few of these up, which I don't suggest that you search for hashtag follow me. At worst, you'll get, this is church, I ain't going to say at worst what you'll get, but at best what you get is just like some needy person wanting more followers, or maybe at best you'll just get something goofy and funny like this video. So watch this. This is a follow me video. So there's like 38 seconds of your life you won't get back. I kid you not, that was like one of the first things that popped up when I searched follow me. And so, and most of them that were, clean, were like that. Just oddball stuff. So this got me thinking, this whole follow me thing, like all these people want people to follow them. And it got me to thinking, like, are they worth following? And that got me thinking, not so much about social media. I mean, that's one thing. But are people worth following? Are people worth imitating? Are people worth, paying attention to the level that you would actually want to model your life after them? So I'm beyond social media feeds, whether you should follow them, but should you follow them with your life? And then this question hit me. Am I worth following? I don't mean necessarily on my social media page, but the answer would be yes, I'm worth following. And I'm not talking about my driving if you're following me, and I would say no, the answer is no, you shouldn't follow me, I'm not a great driver, but it's a whole lot of fun to watch from what I've been told. So I'm talking like, am I worth following in the sense of imitating me? Have you ever thought about that for yourself? Are you worth following? Could you tell somebody, follow me, imitate my life, and you'll do well in life if you just do what I do? That's a whole nother enchilada than saying follow me on Instagram or Twitter, right? Here's the thing. Most of us know that Jesus, we've probably heard this phrase, that Jesus would tell people, follow me. We're used to hearing that, right? He would tell people, and they did it quite literally. They didn't hit a follow button, on some stone tablet. They actually got up from their seat and literally went after him and followed him. Sometimes they gave up their businesses, their families, to see what this Jesus was all about. It was a radical follow. So we're used to hearing Jesus say, follow me. But here's the deal. The early Christians had the ethos of Jesus in them, and they were known to tell the people around them to follow me. They would say that. Like Christians would look at friends and strangers and neighbors alike, and they would say, follow me. One of the early Christian leaders, a guy named Paul, several times he would say, follow me. I mean, obviously he pointed people to Jesus all the time, but he was able to say things like, in 1 Corinthians 4:16, follow me as I follow Christ, or as it's translated in some places, imitate me as I follow Christ. 1 Corinthians 11:1, he says, follow me as I follow Christ, or follow my example as I follow Christ's example. Are you worth following? Am I worth following? What would be the criteria for somebody to be able to say like Paul, and it actually have some substance behind it, follow me, Imitate my life. Now, this has huge real-world implications. So if you're not a follower of Jesus, if you're just seeking Jesus, you're not so sure about this Jesus deal, I would say it has real-world implications. Whether or not you buy into Jesus by the end of this teaching or not doesn't really matter. I think the principles that you're going to learn, I think truth is truth, whether you're a Christian or not a Christian. And I'll just let you in on a secret. We Christians actually think all truth belongs to Jesus because he calls himself truth. It's not a set of principles, it's a person. His name's Jesus. And we believe all truth belongs to him, whether the person acknowledges Jesus or not, it's truth. And I think you're going to learn a truth today that's going to help you know if you're worth following. I also think it's going to be a grid, a lens, a filter for you to decide who you should follow in your life. And I think that has relational consequences. I think it has consequences for the stuff that we ingest, the media that we ingest, who disciples us, whether we're being discipled by cable news networks or whether we're being discipled by the Lord through the Bible, whether we're being discipled by our friends, whatever it may be. I think it has real-world implications even for those who aren't following Jesus, so I hope you'll listen. If you are a Jesus follower, then I think it has real-world implications because part of your faith, part of your command of Jesus was, he said, wherever you go, help people become my students. And the way the early church did that is to say, they didn't just point and say, follow Christ. They would point at themselves and say, follow me. And so you need to know, are you worth following so that other people can follow you as you are following Christ? So are you worth following? What would be the attributes to know if you're worth following? We'll figure that out in 1 Corinthians. So if you have your Bibles, go ahead and turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 10. And I'm going to set this up a little bit as we go there. So turn there, but we're going to have a little bit of time just in me setting it up. So in 1 Corinthians, the church is pretty young. The church might be, that particular church is only a couple years old. The church in general, this letter was written about the late 40s of the first century. So Jesus died and resurrected and ascended to heaven, depending on the dating system, somewhere between the late 20s of the first century to maybe at the latest 33 AD. So the church in general, following Jesus, is only a 15 to 20-year-old venture at this point. And there's all kinds of questions, particularly in major pagan cities which had no real influence of the Jewish God. And so these young Christians have questions. And so Paul started this church in Corinth. It's a city in Macedonia. The city was pretty well off, pretty rich. It was known for a lot of its pagan temples and pagan idol worship, which Paul says are actually idol demons. He would say, the little stone carving, that's nothing, that's just idol. But he would say behind every idol is a demonic power. And so he says there's some demonic power behind these things. And they also were very sexually promiscuous in that city, like anything went. And so they would ask him questions about that. And this church was being, from the temples to that culture, to the sexual permissiveness, to the money and the greed, the church was being shaped by those influences. In fact, they celebrated a guy in their church who was having an affair with his stepmom. So they were pretty loose morally, right? And so Paul writes this letter that to answer their questions they had wrote him about. And when it comes to this issue of how do you fit within the culture, they had asked a lot of questions about all of our meat that we get from the market comes from the idol temple. They would sacrifice an animal, and then that pagan priest would act as the butcher the animal, and you would get your meat either a couple different places. You would go to the restaurant of the temple, and the restaurant, if you went to the restaurant, you weren't just going to the restaurant like we would, the whole sit-down experience was part of the sacrifice and the worship service to that pagan god. And so they're saying, is it okay to eat in that restaurant, participate in that service? And is it okay to buy the meat at the market because it most likely was butchered by a priest during a sacrifice to some idol demon thing? Is that okay? And Paul begins to answer that question, and it's at the end of all that, and you're going, what's this have to do with anything? I'll show you. Maybe, if a miracle happens. At the end of that is when Paul makes his statement in 1 Corinthians 11:1, follow me, follow my example. Imitate me. Well, since all meaning is context dependent, I want to back up from his follow me statement and say, how can he claim that he's somebody worth following? Earlier in 1 Corinthians, he answers the question, don't go to the restaurant at the temple because you're actually participating in a worship service to idol demons, and that would not be okay. You can't worship Jesus and worship demons at the same time. And he says, besides, it would blow your witness. Like, people would see you going there to the worship service, and they wouldn't get it how you're following Jesus and following an idol. So don't do that. Now he begins to answer the question, can I buy meat at a market and eat it? Or what if my unbelieving neighbor invites me to their house and I know the meat came from the temple? What do I do then? Let's take a look at it and figure out why Paul's somebody worth following. 1 Corinthians 10, let's take a look at that up here on the screen. He starts, verse 23, I have the right to do anything you say. He's starting with a slogan of that church. That church was saying, we are free in Christ, and it is permissible for us to do anything we want whenever we want. We are free. That's how a lot of people, I think, define freedom, by the way, right? I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. And so he starts with one of their slogans, and let's see what the rest of the passage says. Let's take a look at the next one. I have the right to do anything you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, so those quotes are that church's kind of slogan, their mission statement. But not everything is constructive. Not everything builds people up. No one should seek their own good, but the good of others. Eat anything sold in the meat market without raising questions of conscience. For the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. If an unbeliever invites you to a meal and you want to go, eat whatever's put before you without raising questions of conscience. But if someone says to you, this has been offered in sacrifice, then don't eat it, both for the sake of the one who told you and for the sake of conscience. I'm referring to the other person's conscience, not yours. For why is my freedom being judged by another's conscience? If I take part in a meal with thankfulness, why am I denounced because of something I thank God for? Like most of Paul's writings, a little wordy, and we're going to break it down a little bit. One of the first ways we're going to break it down is what people who are into grammar, people who are into literature, they call it a chiasm or a chiastic statement. It's off of the Greek letter X, and it means a way to outline things or a way that the author wrote it. So let's take a look at that, and it's kind of in an X shape. You see how I've done it there. So the first two verses are really, he's saying, you guys have freedom, but here's the criteria for freedom, the good of other people. And then the next two sentences are a different theme. It's that personal freedom in regards to the food that they were eating. And then he makes a statement in the middle. The criteria for freedom is illustrated. Then he comes back to the idea of personal freedom and says, but you should be free. He defends it. And then at the end he says, the criteria for freedom is that all people may be saved. So let's go back to the verses there, and with that in mind, and let's just work through it. The very first thing Paul says is he goes, yes, as followers of Jesus, you are free, but true freedom is not doing whatever you want whenever you want. True freedom needs to be put through the lens of, is it beneficial? Is it constructive? And for Paul, he's saying constructive means, does it build other people up? The reason Christ sets us free is not just for our own personal freedom to do willy-nilly whatever we want. He sets us free so that we can build other people up. In fact, I would think you could probably make a pretty good definition or a pretty good grid if you are trying to make a decision on whether to do something in life or with your freedom. You should ask, okay, not only does it benefit me, but how does it build up the people around me? How's it going to affect my friends? How's this decision going to affect my spouse or my kids or my relationships? Paul is saying, yes, you are free in Jesus. Everything's permissible, but not everything's beneficial. Not everything is constructive. He says no one should seek their own good, but the good of other people. And now he gets into this whole meat thing, which I know you may not think has relevance to us, but I think you could probably apply it to a whole lot of freedom issues within the church and decisions that you and I have to make. But let's take a look at their context with the meat. He says, as for meat in the market, he goes, hey, eat that stuff. That's not even a thing of conscience. It's not even right or wrong, he says. You just bought it in the market, and it doesn't matter who it was sacrificed to at that point, because that meat, whether somebody used it to worship an idol or not, That meat was created by God. Everything is the Lord's. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. He's quoting from Psalms 34:1, which the rabbis used as a proof of why we should pray before our meals and give thanks. Bless God because he's blessed us with that. And he's saying, listen, you're free to eat that stuff. But here's the deal on how you use your freedom. You can use it to eat because it's just meat. Give God thanks for it and eat it for the glory of God. And if you're at a neighbor's house and you think the meat came from the temple and it was sacrificed to an idol, eat it. It's just meat. No big deal. But if you're at the cookout and another unbelieving neighbor is there and they know you're a follower of Jesus and they point out that, hey, I want to help you out here because I know you worship Jesus. That meat was given up to an idol, and I don't want it to hurt your faith for you to eat that. If they think it's a problem, then for their sake, don't eat it. Say no. Now again, I know the context is esoteric. None of you are worried about what kind of meat well, some of you probably should be worried about the kind of meat you're eating, but for different reasons, health reasons. We're not going to the grocery going, I wonder if this was sacrificed to a demon. Nobody's thinking that, right? So you say, what's that? What are you trying to pull out? Like, why is Paul saying this? What Paul is beginning to show is, as followers of Jesus, we use our freedom for other people's benefits. We use our freedom. We're completely free. He says, listen, eating this meat or not eating this meat is not a matter of conscience. It's not a sin issue. It's not right or wrong. But in your freedom, if you get invited to a neighbor's house and they set it before you, eat it for the glory of God, man. But if at that same meal, somebody's trying to help you out, you go, hey, man, I don't want you to hurt your religion. I don't want you to hurt your relationship with Jesus. I know you're one of those crazy Jesus followers. You probably shouldn't eat that. If it bothers them, then don't become a hurdle for them to follow Jesus. If they equate eating that with worshiping an idol, then don't eat that so they may have a better chance at coming to know Jesus. I'm hoping you can begin to extrapolate this out of how this has real world implications, right? That you can have freedom to do certain things, yet you should be free. You don't want to, Paul says, don't be judged by the other person's conscience. You're not doing it because you're being judged or not doing it because you're being judged. You're doing it or not doing it in the way that helps that person the most. Don't eat it for the sake of their conscience. Verse 29, I'm referring to the other person's conscience, not yours. For why is my freedom being judged by another's conscience? He's saying, I'm free. If I take part in the meal with thanksgiving, why am I denounced because of something I thank God for? Do you see the balance that Paul's writing here? He's saying, you're completely free. He goes, I'm completely free to eat this stuff. And I eat this meat all the time. And it doesn't bother me because I'm doing it for the glory of God. But at the same time, if it hurts another person's conscience, if it's going to keep them from coming to know Jesus, then I'll restrict my freedom in order to love and serve that person. Take a look at the next two verses here. Let's go to the next screen here with the other verses. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. Do not cause anyone to stumble. The word stumble there means don't offend anybody. Now you need to know this because we tend to be an easily offended culture right now. So he is not saying don't hurt anybody's feelings. If you've read like one chapter of anything Paul wrote, you know he wasn't real concerned about other people's feelings, right? He can be pretty harsh. I'm not sure he's the guy you want to hang around sometimes. It doesn't mean don't hurt anybody's feelings. It's meaning don't be a hurdle for them to come into the kingdom and know Jesus. And in regards to brothers and sisters in Christ, because he says, don't let people stumble, whether to a Jew, to a Greek, or to the church of God. So he's saying, to Jewish people, they have a whole nother set of rules, and you're going to have to come in at a different level to reach them. And Greeks have another set of rules. You're going to have to come in at a different level to reach them. Don't put up a hurdle between them and Christ. Sacrifice your freedom in order that they might come to know Jesus. And when it comes to the church of God, again, it's not about not hurting somebody's feelings. not offending or not causing them to stumble is don't do anything that would alienate them. Don't let your freedom be so braggadocious and out there that it alienates other people who they still don't have that freedom to do maybe what you can. Even as I try, he says, to please everyone in every way, for I am not seeking my own good, but the good of many, so that they may be saved. Paul says, here's the deal on freedom. If you're following Jesus, you are completely free. Everything's permissible, but not everything is constructive and beneficial. Use your freedom for the good of others. Use your freedom to benefit those people around you. And he says, follow me because I'm trying to please people. Now, it's interesting to note, and this is why I put Galatians 1:10 up here. He's not talking about people pleasing in the sense of the way we use that phrase. This other writing of Paul makes that clear. Am I trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. You can't follow Jesus and be a people pleaser. What he's saying in 1 Corinthians 10 is, when he says please people, he means I'm trying to knock down any hurdles that would keep people from coming to know Christ. And I will sacrifice my freedom in order to help them follow Jesus. I know that's a lot of cultural stuff, a lot of historical stuff, a lot of linguistic stuff that we went into the weeds there. But that's the context of the next verse, which is the whole point of this sermon, 1 Corinthians 11:1. It's after he says all of that he can say, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. Or some other translations put it, follow me as I follow Christ. Let's come back to our original question. What made Paul worth following? How could he say this? Well, in context of how he said it and why he said it, the first thing is that made Paul worth following is that he was free. He was not enslaved to anybody else's opinions. He was not enslaved to pleasing other people. He was not enslaved to everybody else's conscience. He was free and truly free. But here's what made Paul worth following. He used that freedom to help other people. He used his freedom to love and serve others. Follow me only if I use my freedom to love and serve you, to love and serve others. Follow me only if I use my freedom to love and serve other people. That's the only person that you can really trust is, do they use their freedom to benefit themselves or do they use their freedom to benefit other people? Follow me only if I use my freedom to love and serve others. That's Christian freedom. You could tell yourself, you could say this mantra, I am only worth following if I use my freedom to love and serve others. This has huge real-world implications. Let me give you a couple. Let me look at it from the perspective of who to date and who to choose to marry. When you start dating somebody, you're essentially, whether you're a man or a woman, you are looking at the other person. This is somebody I want to follow. This is somebody I want to be with the rest of my life. I want to follow them. I want to follow their lead. That you're both telling each other that. And dating leads to marriage, this lifelong relationship. As you're picking somebody to date, that's going to end up, the whole point of dating is to eventually be with them forever. Why would you pick somebody who uses their freedom just for themselves and their own selfishness? You want to look for someone that uses their freedom to love and serve other people. I hear this between spouses all the time where, the man says, I just wish she'd listen to me because I know what's right on this decision. Or the wife goes, I just wish I'm better skilled at this. If he would just listen to me and follow my lead. Everybody wants the other person to follow them, Well, if you're going to tell people to follow you, if you're going to tell your spouse, follow me on this one, you have to ask yourself, am I worth following? Do I use my freedom for the other person's benefit, or do I use my freedom for my own benefit? You see the real world implications in here? It's not just are you worth following, but it helps you decide who you should follow. You could apply that if you get to choose a leader at work, if you get to choose, or if you're looking for a career, or you're looking to make some giant commitment to somebody that you're staking your career on, and you're going to move, you're going to take a new job, you're going to do whatever. I mean, one of the filters I think you should probably be looking through is, if I'm going to stake my career and my life on this other person, are they worth following? Do they use their freedom to serve the people in this company? Or do they use their freedom just to serve themselves? Now, obviously, you don't always get to choose who your boss is, right? But if you're in the midst of a career change and you're looking, that could be a filter to use. It becomes a filter to use for yourself. If you want to be a leader at work, if you want to be a manager, if you want to lead the team, whether that's informally, you want your voice to be heard, or whether it's a formal position where you're leading at work, you have to ask yourself, am I worth following? Am I free, like Paul is free, but do I use my freedom to benefit myself or the people around me? That's how you know you're worth following. I think the military serves as a good illustration of what Paul was trying to say. Somebody who joins the military is completely free, right? Because we're a free country, and they are free citizens of this country. And so they sign up for the military, and they've decided to use their freedom for the benefit of other people. And it actually restricts their personal freedom, doesn't it? They don't get to decide what to wear every day. They're told. She doesn't get to decide how to do her hair. She's told. They don't get to decide where to live. They're told. They have chosen to take their personal freedom and use it for the benefit of other people, to love and to serve. Do you understand that concept? That's how you know you're worth following. If you'll use your freedom, not to be enslaved to another person's opinion. I think Paul made that clear. But will you use your freedom to come under others and to build them up, to be constructive, to love and to serve them? That's what Paul's trying to say. Are you worth following? Follow me only if I use my freedom to love and serve others. You could even just say that statement. I am worth following if I use my freedom to love and serve those around me. That means you're worth following. If you use your power not to come over people, but to come under them. Isn't that Jesus? That's how Paul could say, follow me as I follow Christ, because he was doing just what Jesus did. Do you remember Mark 10:45? The Son of Man, which was Jesus' exalted title for himself, he said, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. He lived that out, man. He used his freedom to love and serve others. I am worth following if I use my freedom to love and serve others. You are worth following if you use your freedom to love and serve others. Let's just take a few moments and as we wind up and just wait on the Lord, because I think the Lord has some work that he wants to do in our hearts, that he's here. And I think he wants to give some people some freedom that right now you've been shackled for a long time, maybe in the opinions of other people, and the Lord wants to come and free you up. Others maybe have a very worldly view of personal freedom, that you have always thought of personal freedom of, I get to do what I want when I want. And that's not true freedom. In fact, everybody that lives that way eventually realizes it leads to bondage anyway. True Christian freedom is being free in Christ, and you're so freed up, you can love and serve other people who don't even like you. Isn't that the witness of Jesus? He loves and serves the people who crucify him. Isn't that the witness of Paul? He shares his faith with people who end up putting him in prison and in jail and beating him and eventually killing him. Man, that is true freedom. That you're so freed up, it doesn't matter what the other person does or thinks of you. You're going to love and serve them anyway. That's like real freedom. I think the Lord wants to do some work in our hearts so we could be those kind of people. So would you just wait on the Lord with me for a few moments?